It is cold in Leningrad. When we arrived there, was breathtakingly beautiful. I had seen autumns in Moscow and even some autumns in Kashmir, where the chinars turn golden yellow, but I had never seen an autumn as beautiful as this. The wonder of the surroundings and the monuments I had seen, the places, the palaces, the art gallery, the architecture of the city, left the mind in a whirl. I had been in a similar state as when I visited Ajanta and Ellora caves with dad and mummy. A surfeit of beauty intoxicated the mind. Beauty is God's handwriting, as Emerson said. I was reading the autobiography of Rousseau in those days and had been impressed by the theory of the natural man, as imposed to the behavior that society imposes upon a man, that is, who is forced to curb the natural instinct. I was, you must remember, a thoroughly spoiled brat. My natural instinct at the moment was to touch Marina. At the cost of being slapped or being taken liberties of the professor, I decided to give a theory of Rousseau a shot. I pressed my elbow gently against her. She took a sharp breath, but did not turn her face away from me. And then she gently pressed her elbow back in return. Such maddening intensity all night. And why did Marina had to come just then? However, I was not allowed to sit there anymore. I wanted to be left alone, if not entirely alone. Then at least the company of Marina.
सुनाई पड़ा ये जो इंसिडेंट ऑब्वियसली आप तो जानते ही इस इंसिडेंट के बारे में बट यू हर्ड and I think Varun has a question for you.
Please.
What was the question?
Can you ask a question?
You have a question?
Yeah.
आपने मैंने पढ़ा इस चैप्टर को भी पढ़ा है आई हैव एंड यू हैव रिटन दैट मरीना वाज ए टीचर ऑफ साइंटिफिक एथेइज्म. ये जो वैज्ञानिक नास्तिकता है उस घटना के बाद आपके भीतर साइंटिफिक एथेइज्म की कुछ बचा या अभी भी आप एथेइस्ट हैं, क्या हैं? थोड़ा उसके बाद का क्या हुआ मैं जानना चाहता हूँ.
क्या? I'm sorry.
Are you an atheist after that incident or did you change?
No. That I didn't. At that moment, of course, Dad was a confirmed atheist, you know, my father, and that's what he taught me right through childhood. But of course, right now it's not like that. I am a very God-fearing man, and I've got. I believe in sorry, but I do believe in one God.
Thank you, Parikshit ji. Not easy to talk about relationships that stay in the past and somehow it becomes difficult to reach out to them again also, and then somehow there is no opportunity to reach out to them anymore. So I can empathize with you. Thanks, Varun. It's not easy, I know, reading your father's words. Thank you so much. Time भी हो रहा है और मुझे लगता है I think it is time for us to meet Galia. So, Harshali, if you could please present Galia. I'm sorry, but given the time and all, maybe if you could see what parts to, bring her out the best. Thank you.
I'll speed read. First of all, good evening to everybody and good evening to Parikshit ji. I'm so honored to be here sharing a stage with such wonderful people. Thank you so much, Aakshat. Of course, my thank you comes personally to you later on, but also to the Russian Center. And to all of you who've taken out time to come and listen to us. And I'm sure there won't be a moment that you will feel or regret listening to the next part that I'm going to be talking about. This is the encounter with the Russian girl. As you've understood by now, I'm sure, the book is written in first person. And while I was reading this part and the others, I realized how heartfelt the writing is, how deeply impacted Parikshit ji was with the people he met around him, the relationships he had. Galina is dead. She said she waited for you, but the cancer got to her first. I had left Russia and Galina 45 years ago. I had never gone back. Galina had waited for me for almost half a century, and she had died waiting. There is a concept in Judaism called Teshua, as Sir was just talking about. It means repentance. The Christians believe that a man is born in sin, thanks to Adam and the bite he took of the apple offered to him by Eve, who was offered it by the devious serpent, which irrevocably changed the fate of humankind. And so, Christians believe that a man is a congenital sinner and can be redeemed only if he becomes a Christian and is washed clean by the blood of Christ. Not so according
हिंदी में कह रहे थे किताब को हिंदी में होना चाहिए था. I deeply feel it has so many connotations. अब मैं जो पढ़ने जा रही हूँ, एक औरत पढ़ रही है. एक वो कहते हुए भी गले में आंसू है कि अगर मैं गालिया होती और अगर तुम मेरे साथ ये करके जाती तो मैं तुम्हें कैसे माफ़ कर पाती और तुम अपने आप को कैसे माफ़ कर पाए. ये एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल है. अब आई एम रीडिंग व्हाट ही रोट एंड ही इज बीन वेरी ऑनेस्ट अबाउट इट. व्हाट आई लाइक अबाउट परीक्षित एंड हिज पेन that he's been very honest. And Galia perhaps reflected in his role in Pavitra Papi, which was the first film I ever saw of him, where he was in Ashik. बहुत सारी बातें, and I'll read out what he's written. I often spent my evenings in the library of foreign literature, situated just off the Red Square. One day, while reading Henrik Ibsen, I came upon a poem that hit me like a sledgehammer. To a man his native land, और करें जरा इस poem पर. To a man his native land is as unto the tree and the root. If there his labor fills no want, his deeds are doomed, his music mute. जब आप अपनी ज़मीन से दूर हो जाते हैं, सब कुछ हाथ से गया. एंड देन इन ऑटम इतना आया है परीक्षित की किताब में. ही इज ऑब्सेस्ड विद ऑटम एंड आई एम बहू ऑफ कश्मीर. आई नो विच ऑटम इज टॉकिंग अबाउट, विच इज अराइव्ड इन कश्मीर राइट नाउ. एंड देन इन ऑटम ऑफ द सेम ईयर नेहरू केम टू मॉस्को. आई हैव ऑलरेडी रिकॉर्डेड द स्टोरी ऑफ माई मीटिंग विद हिम. He admonished me for thinking of settling down in Russia for good. He heard me out, but lost his temper. He said, India is your mother. Do you want to disown your mother? अच्छा, बहुत जगह बहुत सारे आपने परीक्षित जी, मैं अपने क्वेश्चन बीच में डालते जाती हूँ क्योंकि समय है कम. आपने बहुत सारे कारण बताए कि मैं इस मारे छोड़ के आया, पर मैं आपको आपके कारण बताऊंगी क्योंकि मैं रही हूँ बाहर कि क्यों आप छोड़ के आए. I picked up Nehru's The Discovery of India and read it from cover to cover. About India he wrote, she is very lovable and none of her children can forget her. Wherever they go or whatever strange fate befalls them, they don't forget India. I brooded about what Nehru had said to me and what I had read in his book. And at the back of my mind was Ibsen's poem. No doubt Russia was beautiful and the tropics were hot and dusty. But if I settled down in Russia, would my labor fill any want of this country? In this country, Russia was the Soviet Union. अब आप पढ़िए क्या था रशिया, कहाँ से कारण बन जाते हैं, where the reasons start arising. Russia was the Soviet Union in those days. This is a very beautiful incident. Russia was the Soviet Union in those days. I don't know what Russia is like now, but in the Soviet days, it was not an easy place to live in. He writes in the same line, the society was riddled and fear. The society was riddled with fear. The CPSU, the Communist Party, ruled with an iron fist and there was no freedom of expression. No artist can live in any country where there is no freedom of expression. I used to work as an announcer in the Hindi service of Moscow Radio to make a quick buck, which इनके father भी करते थे BBC में. It dished out nothing but blatant propaganda, as did all the other radio channels, stations, and even films. Here comes the incident. Andrei Tarkovsky, sorry, I hope I'm getting the name all right. Andrei Tarkovsky, I remember, showed his film, The Childhood of Ivan, considered by many to be a masterpiece of a cinema. For the first time in our institute, he was booed and parodied at the instigation of the teachers and professors by the students of the institute. He wept and he wept. Director ro raha tha. He was pulled up by the state and the film was banned. He had to ultimately migrate to the West to make the sort of films that his soul and his spirit prompted him to. There was no question of saying anything against the system in the USSR. It was closed as a fixating society. One had to mind the line. That also started. But the people were wonderful. Now we listen to this most beautifully written. But its people were wonderful, and Galia was the epitome of Russian womanhood. And I would agree with that, because हमारे यहाँ बहुत सारी ऐसी बहुएं कश्मीर में हैं. But the people were wonderful, and Galia was the epitome of Russian womanhood, and the forest and the mother nature was captivating, and so were its seasons. And I had fallen for the first time in my life in love with all of them. But Nehru and his book, again comes the Nehru, but Nehru and his book, The Discovery of India, had turned me into something of a patriot, and not a chauvinist, but a patriot. I was torn between my love for Russia and my duty towards India. I still couldn't help considering adopting India as a surrogate mother and living with Galia for the rest of my life. But then something happened that made me change my mind conclusively. Here is that incident where the writer says, Parikshit Sani says, conclusively मैंने क्यों छोड़ा रशिया? और ये मैं क्योंकि 10 साल उतार के आई हूँ, इसीलिए मैं कहूँगी कि ऐसा होता है हाइब्रिड जनरेशन के साथ वहाँ लंदन में भी जो रशिया में हुआ. People in the Soviet Union in those days, and particularly in Moscow, were generally ill-informed, misguided, brainwashed, and uncouth. They laughed at Chinese. मजाक उड़ाते थे. किस का? They laughed at the Chinese, they laughed at the Vietnamese, and nearer the end of my stay, they were increasingly patronizing towards India. And that's what did it. From one of the Southern Republic looked at me through blurry eyes after a couple of vodkas one day and said, "Hey, you Indians, you are all a bunch of coolies with your backs bent and your spines broken. You are a bunch of coolies. You are gutless, you are poor, you are weak, you are helpless. You would disintegrate if we were not there." And that did it. I used to box. What he did, he who looks like a saint like Ram, what he did was a younger Parikshit Sani. I used to box in school. I delivered an uppercut. This is a cut in boxing. I delivered an uppercut to his unshaven Caucasian jaw that landed him out cold on the floor. I was suddenly made aware that I would remain a foreigner in Russia however long I lived there. I was and I would always remain an Indian, a leopard cannot change its spot. And that is the Parikshit ji, please bear me out if I am wrong, that these incidents mainly make you decide to leave that country and go to India. And if I am wrong, please correct me. Just one line answer.
You're right.
Yeah. Thank you, Talia. Thank you. Such pious words. I am deeply moved. मुझे तो लग रहा है मैं गालिया की तरह वहीं उस एयरपोर्ट पर खड़ी हूँ. शायद तुम लौटो, किसी दिन लौटो, ये मेरा विश्वास.
शुक्रिया सर.
परीक्षित जी, अब आपने लिख दिया और रमा जी ने पढ़ दिया, और मुझे लगता है एवरीबडी इन दी हॉल इज होल्डिंग बैक a lot of emotions. I could see on the screen also that you were also holding back your tears, I think. But जो रमा जी ने बोला, I think that is a very important thing. The honesty with which you have written the book, the honesty with which that you have, it's almost as if it's a confession, and you have not shirked away from confessing something which could probably somebody have questioned. But I think you were confessing to yourself, and you were hats off to you, sir. It's not easy to do such a thing. But thank you so much for writing the book. Ji.
I couldn't hear what you were saying.
I'm saying,
So समझ
Ji, I was saying that as Ramaji has said, one thing that stands out from the book is your honesty towards what your life has been, and you have been, you have not tried to mollycoddle it and change things. It's not easy to share what you have shared. It is definitely not easy to share something that many might hold as a challenge against you. How could you leave Galia behind? But you were, you were forthright enough to acknowledge it and put it out there in writing. Thank you so much for having the courage.
Right, truly. That's what my guru in writing, Hemingway, said, that the first line should be the truest line you can think of. Right, truly. The two gurus I have in writing. One is Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy, and the other one is Hemingway. And this is what I learned from both of them, that it should ring true, and it rings true only when you say it from your heart.
Thank you, sir. You have spent more than 1.5 hours. We had asked for an hour of your time.
Personally, thank them personally, and can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to thank them personally and tell them that I'm really obliged for them to take the trouble of coming here and reading the stuff and asking the questions and all that. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you once again.
परीक्षित जी, आप मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं? परीक्षित जी, आप मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं? मैं रमा बोल रही हूँ. Can you hear me?
आप बोलिए.
हाँ, आप बोलिए.
कहना चाहती है, I'll convey it.
मैं सोचती हूँ, the years from 18 to 24 have now given you the strength of translate them to your films and to your book. And the book, when we read it, at least when I read it in last 2 days, I have been to Moscow. I felt I am with you there as a young student and experienced the same kind of accelerating moment in an unknown country with so loving people. I think I would say that this is the best part of your life, and we all envy you that you could have such lovely moments.
Thank you very much.
Relations. I have come for the second time here, or maybe third time. Thank you for a very good experiment. All the youngsters who have come without knowing Russian culture will be now your new friends of Russia. Thank you. Thank you, Aakshat. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Savita, and my colleagues, Harshali and Ravinji and Surji. And thank you for being so patient with me.
Thank you.
एक बार जल्दी 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 बता दो, मेरी अंग्रेजी ठीक थी? तो जोरदार ताली।
Say thank you for coming here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency Capaya Rodriguez from Venezuela. I'm sorry that it took time for us to recognize the effort that you have put into coming here, because Alfredo Caldera is a dear friend and
Can we have a photograph with
yes, thank you so much.
Can we have a photograph with us?
They would like a photograph with you if you can just come up. Can I think if the director can also. Yeah, if we are doing group photograph, I think it would be incorrect if Dr. Ras Mohanty ji, who is also here, who is reached, would not be on stage and. Thank you so much. I'll request everyone to please take the seats.